could not be where I am today if it's not for Dr. King, or Jose Williams, or Andy Young, or Joe Lowry. I mean, to me, I'm that. What's that saying? That turtle on the fence post. You ever see a turtle sitting on the fence post, you know that he or she didn't get there by themselves. Somebody helped put them there. And that's my whole career.
The Dean of the Georgia House of Representatives, Calvin Smyre, reflects on his career nearly a half-century serving under the Gold Dome. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on this day 34 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. There is much more of my interview with Dean Smyre coming up. He looks back on his time working first under Democratic leadership and then under Republican leadership. He's nostalgic and at one point a bit emotional. Also on the show, lawmakers join us in the studio to talk about bills providing CPR and AED training to high school students, stopping telemarketers, and honoring Georgia's HBCUs. But first, we head to the Capitol and correspondent Brenda Waters with our daily wrap-up of the day's news. Brenda.
Hey, Donna, busy day for lawmakers and a few tears shed in between. It was down to business in the House. 6 Senate bills passed. One of them, SB 341, a health care services bill which simplifies prior authorizations for patients taking medications for chronic conditions.
What can typically happen is if you need a special medicine for your condition, your chronic condition, you have to go through what's called prior authorization. The patient and the doctor have to work together on that. Senate Bill 341 simply maintains that if you go through prior authorization once in a year, that's good for 12 months or until the end of your contract with your insurance company. You don't have to do it every 3 months. It's a small but effective step.
The measure passed 161-0. Another bill that passed unanimously, SB 358, a beneficial bill for members of the U.S. Armed Forces who would like to become law enforcement officers.
What this bill does is something we do already for police chiefs, wardens, emergency medical personnel, is allow veterans to transition to becoming law enforcement and paying the expenses to do that. And it's going to affect about 10 to 15 people a year, probably at a cost about $3,600.
Right after Representative Belton presented Senate Bill 358, he bid the House farewell poetically.
The silent lifting mind I've trod, and put out my trembling hand and touched the face of God.
Representative Dwayne Hill also is not seeking re-election.
The day is long. My time is short. I bid you all farewell. And Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
In other news, Governor Kemp signed House Bill 1302. What that boils down to is a tax refund of $250 to $500, depending on filing status.
I just want to thank the members of the General Assembly for this great relief that we're fixing to give hardworking Georgians, returning over $1 billion of their hard-earned money that, quite honestly, we didn't need this year.
And for the second time, Speaker Ralston's Mental Health Parity Act, House Bill 1013, was heard in the Senate Health and Human Services Subcommittee on Mental Health. That was late this afternoon. Public comment was given by those in favor of and those against the bill.
Children's is in full support of the legislation at hand. We have submitted a letter with line numbers referenced to each of you from Children's and Voices for Georgia's Children. And this letter outlines the way that we see this bill and how it positively impacts children.
And as an anesthesiologist, I've been a patient advocate in 3 different Georgia state hospital systems. This bill cannot in any way ensure nor protect patient medical service autonomy and patient choice of confidentiality. When there is no HIPAA enforcement, there's less patient involvement.
Now, following the hearing, Speaker Ralston issued a press release listing the businesses and healthcare providers who support the bill. The list includes Emory, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and also AT&T. And one more thing, it is Lupus Advocacy Day at the Capitol. Many of the lawmakers donned purple capes signifying purple lupus superheroes. Donna, that's my Capitol report. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. Now to my interview with Democratic Representative Calvin Smyre of Columbus. He's known as the Dean of the Georgia House because he's the longest-serving member of the chamber. President Joe Biden has appointed him as U.S. Ambassador to the Dominican Republic. He's awaiting the confirmation process in the Senate. This will be his last year in the General Assembly after 47 years. And we talked about a variety of things, beginning with his election as the youngest member of the House when he was elected in 1974.
Coming in right after the Watergate era, and not wanting to go into politics, but I had an organization called LOTT, L-O-T-T, Leaders of Today and Tomorrow, and I found the best, brightest young people I could, about 20 to 25 of us, and I wanted to meet with the leaders of today who are already in leadership position, and we were going to be the leaders of tomorrow. And I met with a lot of the elders in the community. And one day we were at one of the lawyers' office who were mentoring us, and he said, one of you all ought to run for the state legislature. In 1974, there's going to be an open seat and because of reapportionment. And everybody said, well, Calvin ought to run since he founded the organization. He started us to talking about community service. And I said, no, we're not about politics. We're talking about community and public service and helping the community. And so we left it alone. Then my mentor, the late A.J. McClung, who was vice mayor of Columbus and a person who I admired immensely, called me to his house and said that they tell me that the politics came up, and he said, you ought to run for office. He said, you started the community service, you started this public service, working in community. And he said, what do you think politics is? That's public service. And I thought about it, and thusly my candidacy was born. And there were 6 people in our race, and we won with over 50%.
So you weren't one of those that said all along, oh, I'm going to run for office one day, and you never imagined you'd be here still in 2022?
I thought about it one time. I met the late Hosea Williams, the noted civil rights leader, in 1968, and I talked to him about it. At that time, I was involved in the Student Government Association at Fort Valley State University, and a dear friend of mine, Thomas Dortch, ran for office there, and I was a part of his campaign, but never did I have the idea that I would run for office one day. But at that time, Hosea Williams said, you know, if you get interested in politics, make sure you don't look at it through a knothole. You get inside the ball game so you can see what's going on and what the players and the managers are doing. So that was a good lesson from the late Hosea Williams.
Great mentors you had.
Yeah.
You talked about coming in because of reapportionment, because of redistricting. We've just gone through it again.
That is correct.
You've gone through quite a few of these.
5 times.
Tell us about coming in that way and compare it at all. Can you compare it to what we're going through now?
Well, I can tell you there was a suit filed in my case. I won, and there was a suit filed saying that I did not meet the residential requirements because where I was living was in the district, and I was told I was in the district. Then when the final lines were drawn, I was out of the district. So I moved into the district, and I contend that the district had not been created for a year. So I had every right to move in there. And that came up in the campaign and went all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, because I had been seated, issued it as a moot question because he had already been sworn in. So I didn't understand how brass and how bruising reapportionments were until after the fact. But then I learned what it was all about because when I came in under the umbrella of reapportionment, of course, I quickly learned about how it transpired and happened behind the closed doors. So I knew then that reapportionment henceforth would be a bruising and a difficult process. And it's a lot about relationships, and it's a lot about politics. So you just have to go with the flow, and that's what I've been able to do over the years.
Yeah, you talk about relationships. When you talk to anybody about you, they talk about the fact that you're so good with relationships, and that's one reason you're so successful down here at the Capitol.
Tolerance. Tolerance of other people's opinions. To me, that's been one of my hallmarks. I'm always tolerant of how other people think and be open to other ideas and to other people's opinions. And I've always been that sponge. I always try to soak up as much as I can to get people, so that the more information is knowledge. And the more you let come to you, the more you can talk about things. And so that's what I've always been. I've always been that person to be open. And a lot of the young legislators, they come to me all the time for advice and consultation. And my career has been that way from day one. I've always felt that tolerance would be a part of my MO, and I've tried to do that in my entire 48-year career.
You came in under a Democratic leadership, right? We're now under Republican leadership. Is there any way you can tell us about any differences, any comparisons?
I tell people all the time, there's difference in governance, and there's a difference in opposition. And when you're in power, you can chart your course. You can decide which direction you want to go in. When you're in opposition, you have to be more strategic. You have to be strategic in how you want to answer the various issues. So there's a difference between governance and there's a difference between being in opposition. So with that in mind, I've always tried to, I'm a coalition type person. Whether or not, if you're in charge, then you form coalitions internally. Then when you're in opposition, then you got to have coalitions that across the party lines. And the only way that you can get anything accomplished when you're in the minority is to be a coalition builder, because after all, you don't have the numbers, constitution nor statutorily, to get you where you need to go. And the name of the game up here is who gets what, when, where, and how. And with that in mind, I've always been trying to be a results person. But at the same time, allow principle over politics. And to me, that formula has been very, very successful to me. And people know me, know that I love politics, but I'm principled at the same time. So with that in mind, I try my best to continue to build coalitions. And I tell people all the time, if you want to have a great career in politics, the key word is relationships. Relationships matter.
Some of the young lawmakers have come in, and they always say that they love that you'll pull them aside and you'll say, hey, this is the way it's done. That's important to you, that mentorship part of it.
Key. It's key to me. That's all I've ever known here. And the longer I stayed, the bigger the sponge. The longer I stayed, the more people have come to me. And now it's just universal. Both sides of the aisle. I get it almost daily. I walked up to a member just on yesterday to give them a little advice, and they kind of recognized that they had gone in the wrong direction. So it's and I try to do it in a fashion where it's welcomed. I don't use that hard approach. I try to be with my advice. I try to give a little, be amicable at the same time. So it's something that I love to do. I mean, you've read before that, I believe in conflict resolution, and I believe in being negotiating things out and being negotiable. And I've had some success in that in my career.
Do you worry that we're losing too much institutional knowledge here?
When I came in, there were 66 new legislators in my class in 1975. 66 legislators, that's 1/3 of the General Assembly. And I'm the only one left out of 66 people. I mean, it's kind of mind-boggling. You have to pinch yourself from time to time to think about that. But in doing that, then you have to understand, the role you play. I've gone from the Democratic majority to the minority. There are very few of us in the House that have served in the majority and now in the minority. And so institutional knowledge has a way of getting things done because it moves the ball. when people understand the nuances and the political nuances, and it's more than just kicking the can. I mean, you can kick the can every day, but the key is, can you fill the can?
We have a video I want to show you. I'm going to show it to you and then have you react to it.
Calvin Smyry is truly, not just in Georgia, but on the national level, a master at the legislative process. He's a statesman. He truly is. You know, people will never know the times that he and I interact on issues behind the scenes, but we have, and he has been a rock for me to kind of lean on, he has such institutional knowledge, and you know, and when I hear people talk about term limits, who could want a system that would deny you a Calvin Smyry? Not me. I'm very, very happy for him. And I often tell him, I said, you know, I know that there was a speaker here that you served with longer than me, but there's not been a speaker here that's loved you as much or relied on you as much as I have.
Wow. I've had a long career, and I've had a lot of friendships along the way, and but I've been truly, truly blessed. And David Ralston has been a true friend to me. And politics aside, he's entrusted me. He's trusted me in many, many arenas as it relates to the political process. And a lot of good we've done together. I can't tell you the times we spent together on transportation funding, and transit. It reminded me of my times with Tom Murphy on the World Congress Center, on MARTA, and on the Georgia Dome for the Falcons. Those are major heavy lift items. And that right there is truly heartfelt, and I'm deeply, deeply appreciative of our friendship and our working relationship, although we're from different parties. Going up, you pass hands very, very slowly. Coming down, you pass them fast. So I want to be able to have the same hands that I saw going up that I see coming down.
Are you going to miss it?
Oh, God. I don't know how I'm going to get through my farewell speech. And I'm deeply honored. They don't do farewell speeches on sine die. And the speaker said, you're doing yours on the last day, sine die. We're going to make time.
Dean Smyry talks about so much more that we just couldn't get into the show. His relationship with the longtime Speaker of the House, Tom Murphy, becoming the first African-American floor leader under Governor Joe Frank Harris, and how in the early days he and then presidential candidate Jimmy Carter forged a friendship. It would lead to his relationships through the years with just about every president, Republicans and Democrats. We'll have more of Dean Smyry's interview in an upcoming Lawmakers show. Well, coming up, we'll talk about a bill that changes the way damages are apportioned or divided in multi-defendant lawsuits, and more. You're watching Lawmakers on GPB.
Cigna is a proud partner of Georgia Public Broadcasting and Georgia Lawmakers. Cigna's mission is to improve the health, well-being, and peace of mind of those we serve. More at Cigna.com to learn how you can help support your employees' physical and emotional well-being.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Georgia Humanities, connecting people and communities across Georgia to encourage conversation, education, and understanding. Find out more at www.georgiahumanities.org.
We are the Southern Environmental Law Center. At SELC, we not only take on the toughest environmental challenges, we win, forcing the removal of more than 250 million tons of toxic coal ash, defeating repeated attempts to bring offshore drilling to our coasts, and securing clean air and water protections for communities across our region. Your most powerful environmental defender is rooted right here in the South.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. We're going to talk about several bills with our guest, Republican Representative Chuck F. Strachan of Decula. He is chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, and Democratic Senator Sonia Halpern of Atlanta. Welcome to Lawmakers to both of you. Chairman F. Strachan, you have HB 961 is this apportionment bill. It's kind of confusing. I really had to bring it down to layman's terms to be able to, but tell us what it means, because it's important to individuals.
Well, Donna, thank you so much for having me. So a lot of times the legal bills can be kind of dry, but Georgia being the #1 state for business, it's really important that we address liability concerns that businesses might have. And a recent opinion from the Georgia Supreme Court ruled that if only one defendant is sued, but maybe where multiple parties are involved, that one defendant shoulders 100% of the costs at the end of the case. And so House Bill 961 addresses that. It's a top priority of the business community across the state of Georgia. And it's a compromise bill where we've been able to bring parties together to really address this critical need to ensure that Georgia remains the #1 state for business.
So if one person takes all the blame. So that's...
Yeah, that's right.
How did people react to that when it went through committee and everything?
Sure, there was a shock. Hard to believe this is the case. So, you know, if, say, a business is only 5% responsible, but then has to pay 100% of the cost, that's a lot to carry. And I think it's recognized that liability reform that's common sense like this that needs to be addressed is good for businesses, good for insurance companies, and all Georgians to ensure that costs stay reasonable.
And that's what crossed over, so we'll see where it goes from there. Senator Halpern, who in the Senate, so you'll see that bill. You want public schools to provide training for first aid, for CPR, all of that for high school students. And I heard you talk in committee about why you want that. What made you decide that this is important?
So again, thank you. You know, a lot of our young people aren't necessarily involved anymore in organizations where they would necessarily learn basic life-saving skills and basic first aid. And so, and at the same time, as a state, we also know, even pre-COVID, that we've started to have a shortage of EMTs and paramedics. And so there's not ever going to be a time when we don't have enough people who know how to do basic first aid, who know how to do CPR. Emergency medical situations come up unplanned. You just don't know when it's going to happen. And to have our young people who are in 9th or 10th grade be able to start to learn how to do that is just, it's a value for every single one of us.
And it was unanimous, passed out of
the
Senate.
It did.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now we see so many AEDs everywhere, so this would train them on AEDs too.
It would. So here's the interesting thing. Our law actually already had CPR and automatic defibrillation technique. It already had that. About a decade ago, we actually, as a legislature, passed a law that included those things. Joining, at this point, I think 38 other states also require that. So that's good. We're already there. I'm really trying to add just the basic first aid training, choking, bleeding. How do you react in those situations?
Yeah. I'm a Girl Scout leader. We used to teach it a lot more, but we don't have as many Girl Scouts anymore.
That's exactly right.
You have another bill that also passed unanimously in the Senate that says a parent who is determined to be responsible for the homicide of his or her child shall have no right of recovery against the value of the child's life.
Yes.
It's a lot, but it's shocking that that's not already in the law. So tell us a little bit about where this comes from.
Yeah, so the law right now has a little bit of a gap, and there's a little bit of ambiguity, because on the one hand, it does say that parents have the right to recover for the loss of their child. But in another part of the code, it also says that if you are found to be responsible for the homicide of another, you are not entitled to any benefits from your killing, right? Anybody who kills cannot benefit from their killing. But the law is silent on what happens if the parent is responsible for that homicide. And so this bill basically closes the loop on that, and it makes it clear what I think is already the legal intent, that nobody, regardless of whom, should be able to benefit if they intentionally kill another. So this closes that loop, and ultimately what it means is that, you know, it makes it very clear for judges, whether they're probate judges or Superior Court judges, that the decision is parents don't get to benefit. They can't call for the assets of that child if they're responsible for their death.
Yeah, such a good bill. It came into your committee.
It did. It came to Chairman's committee and passed out of there as well.
We got to hear Senator Halpern's bill. I think it was the first legislative day after crossover day. It was very quick and terrific legislation. It passed out of the House Judiciary Committee unanimously. Excellent legislation, and we were excited to hear it.
Okay, so we want to talk about SB 364 with you. It is a bill in the House Judiciary. It deals with telemarketers. Always something people want to talk about. What does the bill do? So
we all get these calls asking to extend warranties. We want to sell our homes. All these kinds of requests. And Senator Tillery has brought a bill to address that. It would create a cause of action for circumstances where businesses are allowing these numbers. People's numbers who are on the do not call list in particular, and not addressing that fact. The fact that telemarketers are maybe getting these calls sent out, or numbers are sometimes by fraudsters used to send these out and try to trick Georgians. And so we have a legislation we're considering in the House Judiciary Committee right now to address telemarketers, address continued calls when you're on the do not call list, and I expect that legislation is going to pass this week. Oh, I think a lot of people will be interested in that. Thank you very much for that. And before we forget, before we run out of time, there was a ceremony last week to honor Georgia's HBCUs. So talk about that a little bit.
So this was my second annual HBCU Heritage Day celebration, done in partnership with the governor's office. And really, we honored our HBCUs. Georgia actually has 10 historically black colleges and universities. We are the state with the third most number. I think there's 101 total in the country. And our HBCUs graduate some of the brightest minds who go on to be leaders in their communities, leaders in business, leaders in politics, across the spectrum. And also our HBCUs don't just teach our students, but they really create a huge economic impact for the state, like $1.3 billion economic impact. And so they're worthy of celebration. And so I was glad to invite the presidents from across the state to the Capitol and really celebrate the work that they do and be able to have a conversation with them afterward in a moderated panel that we did. And you had a resolution. I did, yes. A Senate resolution about it, yes, too. I did. March 16th was named as HBCU Heritage Day. I walked in afterwards and I saw so many young people interacting with the lawmakers, so that was really great. One last thing I want to get to with you, Chairman Efstration. You also serve on as chairman of the Code Revision Commission, which is a lot. You just approved that the Georgia Code annotations are to be provided for the public. So talk about that a little bit and what that means for people who are interested. Well, the law should be available to everyone to review. If you want to know what the law is, you should be able to find it online for free. There was actually a U.S. Supreme Court case where Georgia was a party asking whether our annotations, part of our law, are subject to public access. And as a result of the work of the Code Revision Commission, they are as of this week. So they are online. Any Georgian can review the entire code, including the annotations now, and we're very proud of that. You don't have to go to the law library and look at those big books. Thank you both for being here today. Thank you for coming on the show, and thank you for joining Lawmakers. Look for Lawmakers, the Capitol Report on Friday at the end of the PBS NewsHour, and tomorrow night at 7, tune in for the TV version of Political Rewind, hosted by Bill Nigut. We'll see you on Monday for Legislative Day 35. Have a good night.